The vastness of the grand conclave chamber of the Signian hegemony was not merely a matter of physical dimension, though its ceiling, a shimmering dome of polarized metamaterial, arched so far above that the faint glow of the distant core world, Cygnus Prime, filtered through as a perpetual, ethereal dawn. It was a vastness born of time, of tradition, of the innumerable generations of delegates who had stood upon its polished obsidian floor, their varied forms and voices echoing through its hallowed space across millennia. Today, however, the vastness felt less like a testament to enduring stability and more like an abyss, swallowing the meager certainties of the assembled species. The air, typically conditioned to a comfortable, neutral humidity and temperature for the diverse physiologies present, felt thick and unbreathable, charged with an apprehension that transcended environmental controls. Speaker Xyler of the Valthar hegemony, his multifaceted eyes swiveling slowly across the tiered seating where representatives from 1,000 systems observed, adjusted the sonic modulator at his throat. His chitinous carapace, usually an iridescent display of calm authority, seemed duller, its usual vibrant hues muted by the somber light and the weight of the moment. "Delegates, honored observers, we stand at a precipice," Xyler's voice, artificially deepened and amplified to fill the chamber, resonated with an unusual tremor. "The intelligence gathered from the outer rim concerning the new species designated humanity presents a paradox that threatens the very foundations of our collective understanding. Their vessel, the Solara, a designation we have now confirmed, has violated every known protocol of interstellar engagement, every established boundary of our regulated space, yet their intentions remain inscrutably opaque. Our initial, cautious probes, executed with the utmost discretion, have yielded only more questions. They are a contradiction." A low murmur rippled through the chamber, a cacophony of rustling wings, chittering mandibles, and the subtle clicks of bioluminescent scales shifting. Elder Cathar of the Cathar Collective, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline lattice, pulsed with a frustrated luminescence from his central plinth. "A contradiction, speaker, or a calculated deception? Their trajectory, observed over the past 2 cycles, is erratic. It deviates from established trade routes, bypasses charted anomaly zones, and yet it maintains an inexplicable course toward the thrashing grounds, an area forbidden by universal consensus for any exploratory vessel for millennia. Why? What could compel a species newly encountered to ignore every warning, every precedent, every shred of common sense we project onto interstellar behavior?" The thrashing grounds. The name itself was a whispered fear among the younger species, a historical scar across the galactic arm. It was a region of space where, epochs ago, an unknown cataclysm had ravaged nascent civilizations, leaving behind a chaotic maelstrom of gravitational anomalies, phantom energy signatures, and the skeletal remains of colossal, ancient constructs that defied all known physics. It was a graveyard, a forbidden zone, a monument to a destructive power that none wished to reawaken or even to merely brush against. Speaker Xyler allowed a pause, letting the full weight of Cathar's words settle. "Indeed, Elder, our preliminary analysis of their vessel's propulsion signature suggests a technology unfamiliar to our registries, yet demonstrably capable of sustained, high-impulse transit. However, their navigation, as you noted, is unconventional. It lacks the predictable vectors of an exploratory mission, the measured caution of first contact, or the aggressive posture of a conquering force. There are no demonstrable fleet formations, no advance scouts, no discernible diplomatic overtures beyond a single, untranslated signal burst that appears to be nothing more than a mathematical sequence, devoid of linguistic structure." "Devoid of structure or deliberately obfuscated?" interjected High Representative Velnxir of the Corvash Dominion, his multiple limbs, each tipped with sensitive manipulators, twitching impatiently. The Corvash, a species renowned for their pragmatic and often aggressive approach to interstellar diplomacy, saw ambiguity as a weakness and an unreadable adversary as an unacceptable risk. "Their vessel, the Solara, approaches the thrashing grounds. Our sensor readings, though intermittent due to the region's inherent volatility, indicate it is not merely approaching, but actively navigating a path through its most treacherous sectors. This is not the action of ignorance, speaker. This is an act of profound, almost suicidal audacity. Or, as Elder Cathar suggests, a profound deception designed to mask their true intentions, to infiltrate or to provoke." A chill, deeper than the usual cool of the Cha. Ember seemed to emanate from the collective fear of the delegates. The idea of provocation, especially near the thrashing grounds, was a nightmare scenario. The ancient energies there were believed to be dormant, but not extinguished. To stir them, even accidentally, could have catastrophic ripple effects across multiple star systems. Our initial attempts at direct communication were met with silence, Speaker Zyler continued, the metallic sheen of his carapace momentarily dulling further. Their transponder signals are active, but they transmit no identifiable identifying data beyond the single, repeating mathematical sequence. Their energy signatures fluctuate, appearing sometimes as a conventional fusion drive, at other times as something far more complex, almost biomechanical in its efficiency. It is as if their technology is designed to evade our established detection methodologies. Or perhaps, they simply operate on principles so fundamentally divergent from our own that our instruments struggle to interpret them accurately. From a lower tier, a representative from the enigmatic Xylo's consensus, a being whose form was a shifting cloud of iridescent particles held together by a localized gravitational field, projected a series of complex data streams directly into the central holographic display. The streams coalesced into a highly stylized, almost artistic representation of the Solara. It was a sleek, elongated vessel, devoid of visible weapon emplacements, its surface a uniform, matte black that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. It possessed an elegant simplicity that contrasted sharply with the more utilitarian, often heavily armed designs of hegemonic and dominion starships. "Observe," the Xylo's representative's voice, a soft, resonant hum filled the chamber. "The structural integrity readings are unprecedented for a vessel of its apparent mass. Our models suggest a hull composition far denser and more resilient than any known alloy. Yet there are no visible external defenses, no energy shields detectable through conventional means. It is a ghost in the void, and its approach vector to the thrashing grounds is not random. It is executing a precise, almost surgical, maneuver through the gravitational distortions that would tear apart any known vessel of its class." A series of gasps, some metallic, some organic, echoed through the chamber. To deliberately navigate the thrashing grounds was one thing. To do so with such calculated precision, without visible defense, implied either an unfathomable understanding of the region's dangers or an arrogant disregard for them that bordered on madness. "What if," mused Elder Cathar, his luminescence dimming as if in deep thought, "their technology, their very understanding of physics is so vastly superior to ours that the thrashing grounds to them represent not a danger, but a resource, or a pathway?" The suggestion, though whispered, hung heavy in the air. The thrashing grounds were considered an impassable barrier, a natural deterrent against expansion into unexplored regions of the galactic core. If humanity could traverse it with ease, the implications for galactic balance of power, for established territorial boundaries, were catastrophic. High Representative Velnxir scoffed, a series of rapid clicks from his manipulators. "Superiority or ignorance, we have seen both, but ignorance on this scale in such a critical region is an act of war, whether intended or not. The potential for catastrophic energy releases if they miscalculate, if they disturb the ancient apparatus within, is too great to ignore. My dominion demands a decisive response, a show of force. They must be intercepted, boarded, and their intentions extracted by any means necessary." His voice, usually modulated, now carried an edge of barely suppressed aggression. A wave of dissent and agreement rippled through the delegates. The Corvash approach was always direct, always confrontational. But the risks associated with engaging a species of unknown capability, especially one that seemed to defy conventional understanding, were immense. Speaker Zyler raised a hand, its segmented digits clicking softly against his armrest. "A show of force, Representative Velnxir, carries its own risks. We have no confirmed weapon signatures from the Solara. To engage them aggressively, based purely on their anomalous behavior, could be perceived as an unprovoked attack, escalating a precarious situation into a full-scale conflict with a species about whom we know almost nothing beyond their perplexing presence." "And what of the alternative, Speaker?" Velnxir retorted, his voice rising. "To allow them unhindered access to the thrashing grounds, to permit them to probe its depths, potentially awakening forces we cannot comprehend. What if their vessel is merely a scout, a precursor to a larger invasion fleet poised to exploit the chaos they might unleash? The thrashing grounds have always been a deterrent, a natural fortress. If they breach it or weaponize it, the strategic implications are unthinkable." Debate raged for what felt like cycles, the political machinations of 1,000 species intertwining with raw fear and profound uncertainty. The fear was palpable. Fear of the unknown, fear of a new power, fear of the ancient terrors that lay dormant within the thrashing grounds. The Solara, the human vessel, had become a focal point for all these anxieties. It was a projection screen for the collective dread of the established galactic order, its very existence challenging their comfortable paradigms. Speaker Zyler, his multifaceted eyes scanning the increasingly agitated delegates, finally brought his hand down with a decisive thud against the control console. Enough! We are becoming entangled in conjecture and emotion. We need data. We need understanding. The hegemony maintains its stance of cautious observation. However, the concerns raised by the Korvash and other delegations are not without merit. We cannot allow an unknown entity to operate without constraint within such a sensitive region. Therefore, I propose a compromise. All eyes, biological and synthetic, turned to him. The tension, for a moment, seemed to abate, replaced by a cautious anticipation. "We will dispatch a diplomatic envoy," Zyler declared, his voice firm, echoing with renewed authority. "A single, unarmed diplomatic vessel, equipped with our most advanced universal translators and sensor packages, will attempt to intercept the Solara at a safe, predetermined distance before it reaches the most volatile sectors of the thrashing grounds. This vessel will carry a message of peace, a demand for identification, and an invitation to parley. Should the humans refuse, or worse, respond with hostile intent, then and only then will we consider the next course of action. But we will not initiate conflict. We will offer them the opportunity to explain their presence, to understand their intentions. This is the only path forward that maintains our ethical integrity and avoids potentially catastrophic miscalculation." A murmur of cautious approval, mixed with lingering skepticism, swept through the chamber. It was a gamble, a risky venture into the unknown, but it was also the only path that offered a chance for peace, a path that respected the long-held traditions of first contact established by the hegemony. The diplomatic vessel, the Pax Aegis, was immediately prepared for its mission. Its crew, comprised of experienced xenolinguists and cultural experts from across the hegemony, understood the gravity of their task. They would be walking into a void of information, their only guide a philosophical adherence to measured response, and the hope that humanity, despite its perplexing actions, possessed a similar capacity for reason. Days blurred into a tense waiting period. The Pax Aegis, a sleek, unarmed vessel of diplomatic intent, pulsed silently through the void, its advanced sensor suite focused intently on the distant, enigmatic signature of the Solara. On board, Captain Jaynara of the Cygnian Diplomatic Corps, her feathered crest rippling gently with suppressed anxiety, watched the primary display. The Solara continued its relentless, inexplicable trajectory, weaving through the outer reaches of the thrashing grounds with an almost unsettling grace. Its movements were precise, deliberate, yet completely alien to any known navigational doctrine. It was not evading, not engaging, simply moving, as if following an invisible path only it could perceive. "Status report," Jaynara's voice, calm despite the internal flutter of her heart sacs, projected across the bridge. "Still no discernible response, Captain," replied her chief sensor officer, a smaller, multi-limbed creature named Kathrek, his optical clusters fixated on the holographic representation of the human ship. "Our hails are being received, confirmed by their transponder, but no reply. The repeating mathematical sequence continues." "And the thrashing grounds?" Jaynara asked, her gaze sweeping across the tactical overlay where the chaotic energy signatures and gravitational distortions of the Forbidden Zone glowed ominous reds and oranges. "They are entering the primary anomaly field, Captain," Kathrek confirmed, his tone tinged with a professional awe that bordered on fear. "Their speed has increased. They are not merely traversing, they are accelerating into the heart of it. Our predictive models indicate their current vector will take them within mere kilometers of the crystalline spires within the next local cycle." The crystalline spires, a mythic location within the thrashing grounds, said to be the residual core of whatever ancient civilization had been obliterated there, a place where energy readings spiked to dangerous, unpredictable levels, and where even the most heavily shielded drone probes had been instantly vaporized. Jaynara felt a cold drea settle in her stomach sac. This was beyond recklessness. This was an act of deliberate penetration into the most sacred and terrifying secret of the galactic arm. "Maintain distance but continue tracking," Jainara ordered, her voice a low hum. "Keep hailing. Inform the conclave of their continued trajectory. We must adhere to protocol, no matter how baffling their actions." She knew the conclave would be in an uproar, the Corvash demanding immediate military intervention. But her orders were clear: observe, attempt communication, and only engage if fired upon. The paradox of the Solara was not merely its presence, but its unsettling serenity in the face of universal peril. It was a ship that should not exist, operating in a way that should not be possible. Then a flicker on the main screen, not a sensor anomaly, but a deliberate act. The Solara, for the first time, altered its trajectory. It executed a tight, precise maneuver not to evade the pack's aegis, but to orient its primary communications array directly towards the diplomatic vessel. A new signal burst, distinct from the repeating mathematical sequence, pulsed through the void. "Captain, incoming communication," Kathrek exclaimed, his optical clusters flaring with excitement. It's a direct linguistic transmission. Our universal translator is cycling through potential matches. It's calibrating, it's locking onto a common frequency." A wave of anticipation, almost dizzying in its intensity, washed over the bridge crew. After days of unnerving silence, of unreadable intentions, humanity was finally speaking. Jainara leaned forward, her heart sacs pounding. "Put it on speakers. Display visual if available." The central holographic display shimmered, resolving into an image. It was not the stylized, geometric forms of the hegemony, nor the flickering energy of the Kaethar. It was a being bipedal with soft, unarmored skin, 2 optical sensors, and hair that swept back from a broad forehead. The face was unreadable in its stillness, yet there was a deep intelligence in the eyes. It was a human. The voice, calm and surprisingly resonant, filled the bridge. It was deep, modulated, and imbued with an undeniable, quiet authority. The universal translator struggled for a moment, then locked in, rendering the words into perfectly understandable Signian. "This is Captain Aris Thorn of the United Earth starship Solara," the human began, his voice devoid of discernible emotion, yet carrying an undercurrent of something that Jainara couldn't quite identify, not hostility, not fear, but a profound, almost ancient weariness. "We acknowledge your repeated hails and apologize for the delay in response. Our systems were fully engaged in navigational computations within this region, which required our undivided attention. We detected your presence some time ago and have adjusted our trajectory to minimize any perceived threat. Our mission is not one of aggression, nor of conquest. We are here on a matter of extreme urgency, one that concerns not merely our species, but potentially all sentient life within this galaxy." The bridge was silent. The frankness, the unembellished directness of the human statement was disarming. No flowery diplomatic language, no cautious overtures, just a stark declaration of purpose and urgency. "Captain Thorn," Jainara responded, finding her voice, her own words sounding strangely formal in comparison. "This is Captain Jainara of the Signian diplomatic vessel Pax Aegis. Your presence within the thrashing grounds, a restricted and highly dangerous zone, is a cause for extreme concern among the established galactic powers. You speak of urgency. Can you elaborate? Your actions have been difficult to interpret." Captain Thorn's expression remained placid, yet his eyes, dark and intelligent, seemed to bore into Jainara with an unsettling intensity. "I understand your confusion, Captain Jainara. The thrashing grounds are indeed a region of immense peril, but they are also a repository of a great truth, a truth that has lain dormant for untold millennia, a truth that we believe we have now confirmed." He paused, allowing the gravity of his words to sink in. "We have intercepted an ancient signal, emanating from the heart of this region, a signal far older than any known civilization in this arm of the galaxy. It is not a random energy fluctuation. It is a patterned message, encoded with a complexity that suggests an intelligence beyond anything we have yet encountered. A message of warning." The bridge crew exchanged startled glances. An ancient signal, a warning. This was a narrative completely unexpected, diverging wildly from all the hegemony's conjectures. "A warning?" Jainara echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. "What kind of warning, Captain Thorn?" "A warning of cyclical extinction events," Thorn replied, his voice still calm, yet now imbued with an almost sorrowful resonance. "A pattern of cosmic destruction repeating acro. Assess the eons, facilitated by a pervasive, non-sentient entity, a cosmic predator that consumes worlds, civilizations, and ultimately entire galaxies. We call it the Void Eater." The thrashing grounds are not merely a graveyard, Captain Jainara. They are the site of a prior encounter, a last stand by a forgotten civilization who attempted to leave behind a beacon, a desperate message for those who would come after. The revelation struck Jainara with the force of a physical blow. A cosmic predator, cyclical extinctions. This was not the political maneuvering, the territorial dispute, or the resource grab they had anticipated. This was something far grander, far more terrifying. "And your vessel, the Solara?" Jainara pressed, her mind reeling, trying to process the enormity of Thorne's claims. "Why are you here, navigating such perils to confirm this warning?" Our long-range telescopes, refined over centuries, detected anomalous patterns of energy dissipation in the intergalactic void, patterns that matched theoretical models of large-scale cosmic consumption, Thorne explained, his tone betraying no hint of embellishment or exaggeration. These patterns led us to postulate the existence of such an entity. Our own history, fraught with conflict and self-destruction, had taught us the value of observing long-term cosmic trends. When we triangulated the source of these dissipations, it pointed to this galaxy and, more specifically, to a region that coincided with the thrashing grounds. We theorized that if such a threat existed, and if previous civilizations had encountered it, they would leave a trace, a warning. He paused, his gaze seeming to encompass not just Jainara, but the entirety of the Pax Aegis Bridge, indeed, the entire concept of the hegemony itself. "The repeating mathematical sequence you detected from our transponder was not a random series, Captain Jainara. It was a complex, multi-dimensional encryption key. We were attempting to unlock the ancient beacon, to access the full scope of the warning. The thrashing grounds are not just dangerous. They are shielded, designed to prevent the message from falling into the wrong hands, or perhaps to remain dormant until a species capable of understanding its true implications could reach it. We believe we are that species, and now we believe you are too." The silence that followed was profound, deeper than the void itself. The human, Captain Aris Thorne, had not merely offered an explanation. He had unveiled a cosmic horror, a hidden truth that recontextualized every known conflict, every perceived threat in the galaxy. The initial arrogance of the conclave, their fear and suspicion of humanity, seemed trivial petty in the face of such a revelation. The Solara was not a ship of war or infiltration. It was a messenger, a vessel carrying a burden of knowledge so immense it threatened to shatter the established order of the cosmos. Jainara finally broke the silence, her voice trembling slightly but imbued with a newfound resolve. "Captain Thorne, this information, it is beyond anything we could have conceived. We must inform the conclave, immediately. But how can we be sure? How can we verify these claims?" A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched Thorne's lips, a fleeting glimpse of emotion that softened the austere lines of his face. "We anticipated this, Captain Jainara. We have spent decades, centuries, preparing for this potential encounter. We have not merely deciphered the warning, we have begun to formulate a defense. The Solara carries not only the data from the ancient beacon, but also the fruits of our own research. Our presence in the thrashing grounds was to activate the final, most crucial component of the ancient warning system, a system that, once operational, will transmit an undeniable, verifiable signal to every sentient species capable of receiving it. A signal confirming the Void Eater's existence, its approach, and the dire need for unity." He paused again, his gaze unwavering. "We are not alone in this galaxy, Captain Jainara, but we are all facing the same approaching night. The question is, will we face it together?" The weight of his words, the profound ethical underpinnings of humanity's actions, settled heavily on Jainara. They had not come with weapons, but with knowledge, not with aggression, but with a warning. And in doing so, they had revealed not merely their own capabilities, but a fundamental difference in their perception of reality, a willingness to confront cosmic horrors that the hegemony, in its long history of localized conflicts, had never truly prepared for. The ship that should exit, the Solara, had not merely entered the forbidden zone. It had brought with it a truth that would shake the galaxy to its very core. The conclave chamber, once a bastion of political maneuvering and species-centric anxieties, now resembled a crucible, forged in the fires of an existential threat. The holographic display, Previ, housely focused on the enigmatic Solara, now pulsed with a terrifyingly vast, shimmering red overlay depicting the projected trajectory of the Void Eater. Speaker Xyler, his chitinous carapace now gleaming with a sheen of cold sweat, addressed the assembled delegates, his voice hoarse, strained, yet carrying a renewed gravity. Captain Jainara's report, corroborated by the now active galaxy-spanning beacon activated by the human vessel, the Solara, leaves no room for doubt. The threat is real. The ancient warning, which we dismissed as legend, as mere static in the cosmic background, has been amplified, clarified, and made undeniable by humanity. Their Captain Thorn, with a composure that defies understanding, has presented us with a vision of impending cosmic annihilation that dwarfs every conflict, every territorial dispute, every political ambition we have ever known. The chamber was unusually silent, the cacophony of 1,000 species replaced by a profound, almost reverent stillness. The initial skepticism, the fear-driven belligerence of figures like High Representative Velnxir had dissolved into a chilling realization. The humans had been right, and their quiet, logical approach, their willingness to confront the unknown, had saved them all from a far greater blindness. High Representative Velnxir, his previous bluster replaced by a deep, unsettling calm, spoke, his voice surprisingly subdued. We were prepared to unleash our fleets, to engage them as an enemy. We saw only what we understood, a threat to our dominion, a trespasser. They saw something far larger, far more fundamental. They saw the horizon of extinction, and they chose to meet it not with arms, but with an unwavering pursuit of truth, even at immense personal peril. He paused, his manipulators still for once. Their vessel, the Solara, it navigated the thrashing grounds not as an act of defiance, but as an act of profound courage, a desperate race against time to activate that beacon, to awaken us. Elder Cathar, his crystalline lattice pulsing with a mournful yet resolute light, projected a new data stream. It was a fragment of the deciphered ancient warning, translated and made accessible by the Solara's advanced analytical capabilities. The stream showed elegant, sweeping arcs of light representing entire star systems, gradually dimming and winking out as a colossal, formless shadow consumed them. The images were stark, terrifying, depicting a relentless, inexorable march of annihilation. The ancient civilization that left this warning, they were desperate. They understood the scale of the threat but not how to combat it, Cathar explained, his hum resonating with a deeper sorrow. They created the beacon, a complex data cache and energy amplifier designed to lie dormant until a species with the ingenuity and fortitude to not only find it, but to activate it could come. Humanity, they were the ones who answered that call, across the gulf of time and the treacherous void. Speaker Xyler nodded slowly, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the chilling images of cosmic consumption. Captain Thorn offered an alliance, not a subjugation, a shared burden, not a demand for resources. Their technology, their understanding of physics, allowed them to decipher the warning and activate the beacon where all our instruments failed. They have even shared preliminary strategies for defense, drawn from their own long-term research into the Void Eater's nature. The full implications of humanity's actions began to sink in with even greater force. They had not only found the truth, they had prepared for it. While the hegemony and its allied species had been locked in petty squabbles and territorial expansions, humanity had been quietly observing the cosmos, preparing for a threat that none of them had even conceived of. Their entire societal focus, their scientific endeavors, had been subtly geared towards this unknown, yet predicted, cosmic struggle. A representative from the Xylos consensus, the cloud-like entity, projected another image. A stark, almost minimalist depiction of the Solara not as a singular vessel, but as a symbolic representation of humanity itself. Their ethics, their logic, their capacity for long-term strategic thinking, it is profoundly alien, yet profoundly inspiring. They are not driven by immediate gain or territorial expansion. They are driven by a deeper imperative, the survival of sentient life, even if it means sacrificing their own safety to awaken others. The philosophical shift in the chamber was monumental. The previous paradigm of suspicion and self-preservation had been shattered by the sheer, unadulterated courage and foresight of humanity. They had looked into the abyss, not with terror, but with a quiet determination to understand it, and eventually to fight it. The human Captain Thorn, Speaker Xyler continued, his voice gaining strength, has shared their preliminary findings regarding the Void Eater's vulnerabilities. It is not a biological entity in the conventional sense, nor a mechanical construct. It is a cosmic parasite, a pattern of energy that feeds on the fundamental forces of nascent star systems, expanding its influence through a subtle manipulation of gravitational fields and dark matter. It is a slow, inexorable decay, rather than an aggressive, violent attack, and because of this, it is vulnerable. A flicker of hope, fragile yet profound, began to spread through the chamber. Vulnerable. The word in the context of a galactic-scale destroyer was almost a miracle. "They propose a unified defense," Xyler announced, his gaze sweeping across the delegates, meeting each one with an unwavering intensity. "A pooling of resources, of scientific knowledge, of military assets. They do not demand leadership, but they offer their expertise, their data, and their profound understanding of this threat. They have presented a plan to create a network of energy disruption fields, leveraging the unique gravitational properties of the thrashing grounds, which they now understand in a way we never could, to amplify a specific frequency that is anathema to the Void Eater's energetic composition. It is a long-term, multi-generational endeavor, but it is a plan, a hope." The collective murmurs of agreement were now not of fear, but of a cautious, desperate optimism. The realization that they were not alone in this fight, that a species had risen from the cosmic obscurity to not only warn them, but to offer a path forward, was a profound emotional anchor in the storm of terror. High Representative Velnxir, now standing erect, his multiple manipulators clasped together in a rare gesture of humility, spoke again. "The Korvash Dominion, long proponents of strength and self-reliance, now recognize that true strength lies in unity. The humans, who we once dismissed as an unpredictable variable, have shown us the true meaning of strategic foresight and ethical responsibility. We commit our full industrial and scientific might to this alliance. We will stand with humanity and with all species against this common foe." His declaration, coming from the notoriously isolationist and aggressive Korvash, was a powerful testament to the transformative impact of humanity's revelation. The conclave, once riddled with ancient animosities and competing interests, was slowly, irrevocably, forging itself into a single, unified entity. Speaker Xyler surveyed the chamber, his heart sacs filled with an emotion he rarely allowed himself to feel: hope. "Then it is agreed. We will form the Galactic Alliance for Sentient Survival. Humanity, through Captain Thorne and the vessel Solara, has not merely presented us with a crisis. They have presented us with an opportunity to transcend our differences, to unite against a common darkness, and to forge a future that none of us could have envisioned." The philosophical implications were profound. Humanity, in its quiet, persistent pursuit of cosmic truth, had inadvertently become the catalyst for a galactic awakening. They had forced 1,000 species to look beyond their own borders, beyond their own short-term interests, and to confront the vast, terrifying, yet ultimately unifying reality of their shared existence in the cosmos. The Solara, the ship that should exit the thrashing grounds due to danger, had instead entered it, and in doing so had opened a door not to conflict, but to a collective future. The galaxy was no longer a collection of isolated, competing empires. It was a nascent, unified front against a darkness that had silently threatened them all for eons, a darkness now illuminated by the unwavering light of human ingenuity and courage. Months flowed into years, then decades. The initial shock of the Void Eater revelation slowly transmuted into a galvanized purpose across the newly formed Galactic Alliance. The Solara, once an enigmatic intruder, now served as a central node in the vast network of scientific and strategic planning, its human crew integrated seamlessly into the multi-species command structure. Captain Aris Thorne, his quiet authority undimmed by the passage of time, became a figure of silent reverence, his predictions and strategic insights consistently proving accurate. The thrashing grounds, previously a zone of dread, was now a hive of controlled activity, a monument to interspecies cooperation. Gigantic energy disruptor arrays, designed with human input and constructed with the combined engineering prowess of 1,000 species, began to hum with dormant power, forming a defensive lattice around the galactic arm. The Alliance had not only survived the initial terror, it had thrived. Cultural exchanges flourished, technological breakthroughs were shared freely, and a sense of shared destiny permeated every interaction. The humans, once an anomaly, became a vital, integral thread in the tapestry of galactic life. Their capacity for calm logic in the face of overwhelming odds, their profound empathy that extended even to the existential threat itself. They sought to understand the Void Eater, not merely destroy it, and their unwavering commitment to the long game earned them a respect that transcended mere admiration. They were a species that saw the universe not as a chaotic collection of random events, but as a grand, interconnected system, demanding deep understanding and thoughtful ethical interaction. One cycle, as the projected arrival of the Void Eater's primary consumption wave drew nearer, Captain Thorne stood before the Grand Council of the Alliance, a body now fundamentally transformed from the old Cygnian conclave. Speaker Xyler, though older, still commanded the chamber, but now with a profound appreciation for the unity that bound them. "The energy disruption lattice is nearing full operational capacity," Thorne stated, his voice as calm and measured as it had been on the day he first hailed the Pack's aegis. "Our simulations indicate a high probability of success in deflecting the Void Eater's main mass, though localized incursions will inevitably occur. Our long-term goal remains not merely to repel, but to understand and ultimately neutralize its fundamental processes." A low hum of satisfaction rippled through the council. Years of relentless effort, of unprecedented cooperation, were bearing fruit. But Thorne paused, his gaze sweeping across the diverse faces, the myriad forms of the representatives. A subtle shift in his posture, a barely perceptible tightening around his eyes, signaled a deeper revelation. "However," he continued, his voice dropping slightly, "our continuous analysis of the ancient beacon's deeper archives and our own refined stellar cartography has revealed something further, something that puts the Void Eater in an entirely new context. The ancient civilization that built the beacon, they were not merely warning us of a threat, they were also sending a message to something." The chamber fell silent. The philosophical implications were immediate and profound. A message to something? What entity could possibly be communicated with by a civilization facing extinction from a cosmic predator? During our initial deep scans of the thrashing grounds, Captain J. Nara detected anomalous energy fluctuations near the crystalline spires, Thorne explained, a series of complex data projections shimmering into existence above the council table. "At the time, we attributed them to the residual energies of the ancient cataclysm. However, with the full power of the Alliance's computational resources and the complete deciphering of the ancient beacon's secondary protocols, we have now reanalyzed those readings. They are not residual. They are a signal." The Xylo's representative pulsed with a heightened luminescence. "A signal, but to whom and from where?" "From within," Thorne replied, his voice almost a whisper, yet resonating with an immense weight. "The crystalline spires are not merely the remnants of a destroyed civilization. They are a colossal, dormant construct, a cosmic arc sealed for millennia designed to preserve the essence of that ancient civilization, not from the Void Eater directly, but from the collateral damage of its passage. But it is also something else. It is a communication device of unfathomable power and reach." He gestured to the main display, where the shimmering red of the Void Eater's trajectory now had a new overlay. A faint, almost invisible blue line extending outwards from the crystalline spires, reaching beyond the boundaries of their galaxy into the intergalactic void. "The ancient civilization," Thorne continued, his eyes filled with a distant, almost melancholic understanding, "realized they could not defeat the Void Eater alone. They were too nascent, too unprepared. But they understood its cyclical nature. They understood that it was not unique to our galaxy. They theorized, correctly as it turns out, that other galaxies, other civilizations, would face this same existential threat. They sent a warning," Elder Cathar murmured, his crystalline form vibrating with awe. "Not just for us, but for others, across the cosmic ocean." "Precisely," Thorne confirmed. "The blue line represents a directed, powerful signal burst, a beacon amplified by the unique gravitational properties of the thrashing grounds, broadcast across vast intergalactic distances. It contains a compilation of their knowledge, their experience with the Void Eater, their hopes for a unified response from a future, more advanced galactic civilization. It is a call for mutual aid extended across the gulf of cosmic time and space." Speaker Xyler, his senses overwhelmed by the profound implication, leaned heavily on his console. They reached out beyond their own demise. They projected hope into the void, hoping another galaxy would answer." "More than that," Thorne clarified, a ghost of a smile talc. Hing his lips. "They were reaching out to us. The Solara was initially drawn to this galaxy not just by the Void Eater's anomalous energy signatures, but by a faint echo of this very signal detected by our ultra-long-range telescopes. We were not merely chasing a threat. We were answering a call from a long-dead civilization, hoping to unite others against a shared enemy." He paused, letting the full weight of the truth settle. "And we are not the only ones to receive it. Our recent post-beacon activation deep space probes have detected a series of corroborating signals. Faint but distinct, Responses from other galaxies, other alliance structures facing the same threat, having received the same ancient message, are now looking towards us. The chamber erupted, not in panic, but in a wave of profound, joyous, and utterly overwhelming awe. The twist was not merely about a cosmic threat, but about a cosmic network, a tapestry of life reaching across the universe, woven by an ancient hope. The galaxy was not alone in its struggle. It was part of a larger intergalactic struggle, and humanity, by virtue of their unwavering curiosity and their ethical commitment, had become the bridge. The thrashing grounds, Thorne concluded, his voice swelling with a quiet triumph, are not merely a place of ancient death, but a place of cosmic birth. The Solera was drawn here not by chance, but by design. We were not exiting a danger zone. We were entering a new frontier, a frontier of intergalactic cooperation. The Void Eater is a threat, yes, but it is also the catalyst for an unprecedented unity, not just within our galaxy, but across the universe. The council members looked at each other, their minds reeling from the magnitude of the revelation. They had begun with fear and suspicion, with an assumption of humanity's parochial intentions. They had ended with an intergalactic alliance, forged in the crucible of a shared cosmic struggle, guided by the silent, persistent wisdom of a species that had dared to look beyond its own horizon. The Solera, the ship that should have turned back, that should have exited the dangerous thrashing grounds, had instead pressed forward, unwavering, and in doing so had opened up a universe far vaster, far more interconnected, and ultimately far more hopeful than any of them had ever dared to imagine. The final reflection was not merely on humanity's strength, but on their unwavering capacity for empathy, their relentless pursuit of truth, and their profound, quiet courage to confront the cosmic unknown, not with aggression but with an offer of unity to all. The story of humanity was not one of conquest, but of connection, a bridge across the silent, terrifying abyss, connecting all life under the vast, uncaring, yet now profoundly hopeful gaze of the stars.